Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin, and this is the show where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of property experts coming to you from our studios in Canary Wharf, London. Joining me to do this is Steve Wayne, who is founder and owner of Benjamin Stevens London Agents. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And Jason Antill, who's MD of PRE Surveyors. Welcome to you.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you both back in the studio. Steve, let's start with you. Agency systems have been revolutionised by PropTech in recent years, particularly with regard to letting and sales chasing and progressing. With the trend of many agents going solo and becoming self-employed brokers, are there any PropTech firms offering good programs for the individual or smaller firm, therefore helping them to control their business properly?
So that was a lot in one question.
Yeah.
So I'll take it from the beginning.
Okay.
So PropTech's a massive part of our industry, and it's changed a lot. The problem with PropTech, it solves a lot of problems that don't need solving. And I get a lot of people come back to me. I'm quite blunt, and whether that's a good thing or bad thing, but a lot of people come to me and go, can you give me your opinion on this? And I find so much of it is just a waste of space. That being said, there's some great stuff, especially in the letting sector. So if you look at lettings, there's so many tick boxes now that you need, things like right to rent, things like make sure a deposit, your electric certificates, all of this stuff. And there's some really good programs to make sure you don't forget, because it's so easy to forget. So we use a system, and we cannot produce a tenancy unless A, B, C, D, E, F, G has all been done. So things like that are brilliant for the industry and have really helped. Things like you look at nowadays, I remember back in the day, people would walk in with pages of bank statements and pay slips and their IDs, and you get lost in a mountain of paperwork, forget about what it does to the environment. And things like that now, it's so quick, and all of those things, so stuff like that's brilliant. But there can be almost too much. In regards to the self-employed models, yes, there's so much now. So you look at probably more AI than almost PropTech. Things like, staying in contact with clients. WhatsApp now can definitely be integrated into AI and can be almost used as a second agent. Things like getting feedback from people. But whatever PropTech brings, nothing will ever be better than the personal touch. And that's why certain companies who try to be all prop and no person failed in our industry. And our industry is very much about still the human touch. Property is all about people, and you can have as much tech as you want, and tech needs to be there to support you, not there to replace you.
Well, it's the same with AI, isn't it? People sort of tend to take it as absolutely correct, but the real problem is that AI can't discern between what's false and what's real.
No.
And unless you have the human person engaging with AI, you've got no judgment, have you? You don't know what's right and what's wrong.
If what happens, if the industry all ends up using the same systems, the same AI, well, what's the difference between the company who wear red, blue, green, and yellow? And actually, I always speak to my staff about this, about why did we win or lose that instruction? Well, actually, it's not about fees. It's not about who their friends are. It's about what we say to them, what we promise them, and making them feel that they can trust us. And trust you can't get through tech. You can only get trust through people. So you can have all the skills, like we use a system where if you go on my website and you're into our database, I can see that you've been on and you've looked at a certain point of my website, which then enables me to give you a call and say, hello, Mr. Jones, how are you? And they'll be like, that's so weird you called. I was just on your website. So things like that are brilliant enablers. But there's also so much tech we use, and I love tech, but my staff don't necessarily use it. And there's certain things which we have, and you can actually have too much tech, too many systems. And I think the key to most businesses are keeping your processes clean, correct, but simple. I think you get too much prop tech, and I get demoed stuff. I go to an event, and you're just being thrown stuff from every angle. We can do that, and there's that brilliant line that salespeople use. But if I get you one more sale a year, would it be worth it? It pays for itself. But you can't do that with 10 bits of tech. You've got to be really careful. Because if as agents we get tech so involved, well, then it will replace us and it will replace our industry.
It's a long time since I've been involved with agency, but it seems to me these days that rental is controlled and monitored and legislated for in some respects far more than actually the sales market.
The sales is still, can go that way of being a little bit wild west. There's, you need to do the AMLs on your buyers and your sellers. But other than that, people can say what they want. You know, you still sometimes I read people's bios and what on their details. This stunning, magnificent, beautiful 5 minutes walk, and I'm like, well, who's walking? Linford Christie. Sales still sort of says what they want, does what they want. There's not the legislations in sales, especially that bit from, because I think with sales, that the solicitor's going to check it. So they've almost let the sales market be. So yes, lettings is definitely far more governed than the sales market.
Steve, thank you. Jason, do the experts think that the reassessment of green belt areas and the introduction of the new grey belt classification will actually achieve much in extra home building development? And I suppose that's in reference to this 1.5 million homes the government think they might be building over this next 3.5, 4 years.
I think the thing which will drive it, as you said, is the targets. And the targets of 1.5 million, or as I said, 90,000 homes, is a huge amount of targets to meet in what we're saying is about 4 years' time. And for that to happen, we really need to look at the planning system. So the planning system at the moment needs to be loosened up and re-looked at, like you mentioned, brownfield and green belts.
I mean, the problem with these targets that I talk to a lot of people in the studio here from various different sectors of the industry, and they tell me that building materials are in short supply and certainly escalating in terms of cost. And as I mentioned on a similar program a week or so ago, when we start rebuilding places in the Middle East after this war, when we start rebuilding things in Ukraine, worldwide, or certainly Europe-wide, building materials are going to go very short. And when they go short, they're going to get very expensive. So that's one problem. And then on top of which, we've got now all this visa trouble, and the difficulties of bringing people in to do work as we used to do when we were in the market. We haven't got the labour to build 1.5 million homes. This is what the people tell me. I don't know how right that is. I don't know what your experience is of that. But
there is a big skill shortage. And I think that could be from younger generation perhaps not wanting to do this type of skilled work. Younger generations going to university rather than going down the apprenticeship route, which I really recommend the apprenticeship route. So you could go down, you could be a building surveyor through the apprenticeship route. You don't have to go to university, or a plumber or an electrician. Looking at the costs, yes, we saw yesterday that the figures came up around 5% inflation, still high for food. It's around 4.5% inflation for other goods as well. And that will have a huge impact, as you said, on the walls that are going on at the moment. But also it's the appetite for, I don't want that built next to me, the neighbour problem. Where people don't want these amounts of homes. And then you've got the infrastructure problems. So not only the roads, you then got the schools, the hospitals.
But they even say the national grid can't cope, don't they? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at data centres. So we're looking at building, the news last night about how the government wants to invest something like 50 billion, or have got 50 billion pounds worth into AI. We're looking at you're having to look to build huge data centres. So the grid, can it take capacity or not? Or is there capacity for the grid?
It's not an easy task, is it? And building development isn't just a sort of a confined industry. It spreads right across, as you just said, from electricity to drainage to all sorts of different things. Very complex. Look, just for this last minute or so of the show, we've covered various issues relating to legislation, governance of businesses in the property industry. You quite rightly mentioned previously that agents are dealing with probably a person's most serious asset in their life. And I have in front of me two people. You are from RICS, which is a very conventional fellowship of surveyors, very proper, very correct. You're from an agency background, which is an independent business away from the RICS. But not many agents have got RICS members in there, and yet the government will always go to RICS for information, whether it's about sales or anything else. I wonder, do you not think between you that there's an opportunity to bring those two parts of the industry together?
Well, they always call us when they need a comparable.
Yes, yes, they do. Yeah, I mean, you're talking to somebody here who's spent their life arguing with valuers. But anyway, go on.
But yeah, there's definitely a middle ground, and I think agents want to learn. I think agents want to do better, and there's definitely a link between, you know, there is this sort of surveyors, you know, like solicitors are sort of the enemy, but actually we're all on the same page. We all want the same thing to happen, and we all want the industry as a whole to be seen in a much better light.
Mm. Any comment?
No, I totally agree. I think we're going back to certain questions where I do think that people should go out and get professional reports done or professional advice. I do think we should sit around the table and discuss, should they buy that property or not?
Yeah.
I know some estate agents might really push for them to purchase that property rather than reading some of our reports and costs and budget costs of repair and service charge.
I see a lot of people who, you know, talk to get caught out with negative equity and things like that, and for various reasons they can't sell their place because of high service charges. But a lot of this comes back to doing due diligence before you purchase, and for that you need professional help. That's my view. Okay, thank you very much, and that's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break when I'll be asking Steve and Jason more of your questions. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the programme, and I shall be asking Steve Wayne and Jason Antill more of your questions, and those questions are going to relate to two very important issues. One is the new Rental Act, helping tenants have a better and more secure tenancy, and the other is about green innovations in terms of building and development. So we'll move on, and first question to Steve Wayne. Do the panel think that abolishing Section 21 evictions will simply clog up the courts and put landlords off investing?
Well, yes, there's definitely a rush at the moment before they make the changes for people to get tenants out. The problem is, and I think what's not being said enough, is they're changing one law to bring in another. If you're a good tenant and you look after a property, a landlord's buying a property as an investment. A landlord's happy to keep you there. Those are not the problems. The problem is the tenants who are bad tenants, the ones who don't pay, the ones who cause nuisance, the ones who damage a property. And what the government are doing is they're just reframing the law. So you're going from one section to another section. And I think people are so petrified about things changing, but you're getting a lot of landlords who are now thinking it's actually going to get worse. But actually, you'll still be able to get your tenants out. You'll still be able to serve notices in a different type of way. And actually, maybe things will be done better. And maybe they'll become a new, better, more professional type of landlord. So although there's this really negative vibe, but the problem with Section 21s is it's been going on for years. Like, we must be talking 7-8 years about this. This has been going on. And you talk about the Rent of Right bill, which is coming in. It was supposed to come in 6 months ago. And this is more the uncertainty about not knowing what's coming is what's scaring people and stressing people out than actually it coming itself. And I think that's the problem, is you've got a lot of people who don't like uncertainty. They don't like for our point of view, we wanted to do a big landlord event about what's coming. I can't do it because I don't really know what's coming until they say that's law. And I think that's more of a problem, is uncertainty, because the reality is the laws, you'll still be able to get your tenants out. You'll still be able to evict people. It's unfair evictions. You've got landlords who go, and I've seen it personally, you've got a landlord who rents a property for £1,400. Next year they want to put it to 18. Well, I'll rent it to someone else who will pay it. And yes, there probably will be, but that's not fair on people who treat that property as their home. So as a landlord, you want someone to look after the property like it's their home, but you want to give them no security. And I think that's sort of the problem. But if you're in it for the long run, I'm a landlord, I want my tenants to be happy. I want them to pay my rent. I want them to look after my property. But in all honesty, I want to leave them alone to enjoy the property. And what you're getting now is you're getting more professional landlords who understand that, who don't just want one or two, They want 10, 20, 30 and build it as a big long-term business.
I do agree with your point, but I think one of the problems is our rental lease system. I can't see why we can't have two forms of lease. It may be it's necessary to have a sort of 6-month or 12-month fairly short lease, because there are landlords around who can't guarantee what their financial position is going to be in 18 months or 2 years' time, and they may well need that property back. And you're right, it would be unfair to suddenly drop on somebody, oh, well, I need it back now, this is your home, but tough luck. But if those people knew at the time that they were definitely on a 6 or 12-month maximum lease, then they'll have read the lease, the landlord would have been happy with it, everybody's happy with it, so just do what it says. You could then have, for particularly the institutional landlords, a much more rigid occupation system, so that it's there for 5, 10 years or whatever is deemed sensible. So you have a sort of 2-section lease system, and I think that would have to come in. Otherwise, we're going to get I mean, the private landlord has been extremely useful ever since Margaret Thatcher brought in the assured short tolls. It brought a lot of private landlords into the market and eased the housing situation. And if we're not careful, we will lose that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, you scare landlords enough, they'll walk away.
Yeah.
But I think what sort of probably missed, and what maybe the government doesn't want you to hear, is if you're one of our tenants and I phone you up and say, look, he's just got divorced, he's going to need his property back, he's given you a few months' notice, as soon as you find something, you move out. Actually, that's how most scenarios work. Very few scenarios work, well, I'm going to have to take you to court to get you out, because you don't want that stress if you're a normal person. The problem and a secret that no one really talks about is it's people who are on housing benefit, who the government turn around and say to them, you need to get evicted before we rehouse you. And actually what happens is a lot of those tenants carry on paying rent, and they go through the process to be rehoused. And actually, it's almost like the government are creating these laws that actually almost benefit the stories they're telling. But that's a tiny little bit. You don't ever hear, oh, I had a brilliant tenant, they were great. That doesn't make good TV. The problems make good TV. Actually, 99% of our tenants are good as gold. They end up giving notice and wanting to leave before a landlord wants them out. It's only the horror stories, and actually the horror stories come from bad referencing, greedy landlords. You know, I always use the analogy, if you were to, and I used to use this when I used to do back on the shop floor. If you're a landlord and a loaf of bread's £1, but if I'll pay £1.50 for your loaf of bread, because I'm starving and I'm desperate for it. Actually, sell that loaf of bread for 90p and you'll sell it to the world. And it's the same with lettings. If a flat we all know worth £1,500 a month, rent it for 14, have 5 people that want it, choose the right tenant. If you ask for 19, I phone you up and go, I've got someone. You're like, great, I'll take them. I haven't even told you who they are yet. And actually, that's the problem with lettings, is people who want to take too much and they want to squeeze too much. They're the ones who get the bad tenants. The sensible landlords, the landlords who are educated, the good landlords, which is 99% of landlords, they don't have these problems. But unfortunately, those no problems don't make the newspapers because they're of no interest. The problems are very small. The issues are very small. If you do things properly, you use a good agent, and you use your gut more than anything else, the problems aren't there, which then sort of means the laws are all a little bit irrelevant, because people will move out. But the laws are changing, but they're the same. They're just written in a different way.
Okay, good. Right, Jason, green subjects, your favourite. Is the government's ambition to have 19 million homes converted to heat pump systems and similar realistic or even remotely possible? And I suppose this comes down to the sort of sustainability of what we're building, doesn't it?
That is true. There was, I don't know if it still is, a government scheme of which they were giving owners or household owners amounts of money to buy these heat pumps. What I think people don't understand is some places you might have to get planning permission, because these heat pumps are quite large machines, or condensers. Some of them could be as large as...
I'm told also quite noisy.
Yes, yeah, they can be very noisy, quite large as well. And in a conservation area, it might be difficult to get planning permission for that. What you can get out of it, though, you possibly could meet your EPC energy performance certificate legislation by putting these in. I do know that a lot of people were perhaps looking more going down the gas boiler route than the electric heat pump system. So I think it'd be quite interesting to see the take up of these.
I'm told that there are a certain number of people who are actually buying a spare gas boiler and keeping it in the garage, ready for it when the change becomes actually illegal to do. They can do because they've already got the thing purchased.
And we all know utility bills, don't we? So we know electricity is going up regularly. And gas, so it'd be interesting to see what would outweigh the other.
Are these pumps expensive to run electricity wise?
I don't know the facts and figures, but I would have thought depending on use. I know that they don't just do your heating, they also do your hot water as well. But inside the actual property itself, it's a lot larger than just a gas boiler. It's about the size as a fridge. The actual system inside. Okay. It's got a hot water tank in there as well.
I'm also told that a lot of people make a mistake, say, yes, okay, fine, lovely, we'll swap over, it's the right thing to do. And then they find that all the piping and stuff and the radiators within the home are not of a capacity to be run off these sort of heat exchangers and ground pumps. Is that right?
So that's something that you would need to speak to a specialist about. But I would have thought kind of old school types radiators, say ones that are 20 or more years old, I would have thought that probably won't be able to take the new systems.
So it could turn out to be quite an expensive job, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. I think you do need to do a lot of research into it, but also look, see if this government grant is still there.
Yeah. No such thing as a free lunch, is there?
Unfortunately not.
Have you come across this sort of heat pump business?
Not really. From our side, I think people buy the house and will worry about the heating afterwards. You know, it's like with the EPC thing we were discussing earlier. No one, in the nicest way, cares. No one's ever come up to me and go, "I love the house. That heat pump, though, is not for me." Or that EPC rating is a problem.
But I can remember years ago when electricity was really sort of demonized, wasn't it? You know, you'd almost not buy a house if it was all electric. You'd say, no, I want gas.
I think that was always more of a problem with flats and houses, because flat houses you can always change. But you do get certain communities who like to cook on gas because it's a better cooker. But I think people, you know, I don't think it's a be all and end all for people nowadays. People, you know, the invention of the air fryer, people cook so little with what they're used to, and people have become lazy with Deliveroo and things like that. You know, what heating someone is in a house is not their number one priority.
Not so critical, is it?
Not as it used to be.
No. Okay, well, thank you very much. So I'm going to say a big thank you to Steve Wayne of Benjamin Stevens, London Agents. Thank you for coming in. Jason Antill, MD of PRE Surveyors. Thank you very much for coming in. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time, Sky 117 London TV, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock.